Hello, this is Voss Graham, your organizational architect, and I'm back. I apologize for the drought there in my lives. I was going daily and then wound up at a resort in Arizona that you would think that would have strong internet connections, and sure enough, they do not. And they kept kicking me off. So now I'm gonna relaunch today. Got settled back into Memphis and want to start today by sharing something that I believe that is of great interest to all business leaders, and that I've made the statement often, and I will always believe this, that everything we do in business is a process, and we either master the processes or we don't master the processes. And if we don't master all of the processes, and there's a lot of them, if we do not master them, there will be gaps in our performance, our productivity, our efficiency, our effectiveness. And that is probably one of the biggest issues that I run into as an organizational consultant, to find these gaps in the processes, particularly if there are sales leaders who have moved up into the CEO ranks of an organization. Unfortunately, because of the usual makeup of these leaders coming from sales, process is not exactly their top of mind topic. They're very good at new opportunities, making sales, interacting with customers, and leading the company with a very optimistic point of view. However, there's still 14 major business competence, or excuse me, processes that have to be monitored and reviewed. And particularly for small business owners, as you move up through the stages of growth and you add more and more people as you grow, to which creates more complexity within your organization, the processes change and need to be adjusted based upon, or the focus on those particular processes need to be focused as you move through the stages of growth. Each stage of growth has a priority listing of which ones need to be having the most focus from the CEO and basically the organization as a whole to be successful. So what I plan to do today is to just review the 14 major business processes, give you the list, and also ask you on an informal basis without a poll being posted. I did not post a poll, but there are 14. What I'd like you to do is kind of a crude poll is write in the comments the particular process that you have the most interest in, and let me know that that is important to you so that I can spend more time when I go in depth. Now, that's what I plan to do, is to go into depth and detail relative to the processes, the 14, and share information. And it's best that I do that over the next 14 days, or after today. There'll be next 14 days. Each day I will go into depth on one of the major business processes. And there are multiple items under each category that you need to be aware of. But I can spend time there based on my 50 years of business experience as well as a consultant and a strategist. There's not too much that I haven't dealt with in any of these 14. So we'll have a lot of fun doing that. And I will love your comments. So do the informal vote. Just do a write-in. If you have a top 3 that you want to know more about, do that. Or if there is one particular one that you pay most attention to, write in. And then if you would, follow up if you've got questions or some kind of curiosity about that particular one. I would look forward to it. And just remember that It's going to be 14 days, and I'm going to go in the same order that I'm going to present them to you today. So if I'll just give you a number so you can figure out which day that particular one would be presented, and then you can tune in for the live that day. Okay, let's start off. The first one is financial. There are financial processes. Obviously, there are financial processes. I mean, business is not too complex. If you break it down, there's revenue that comes in to one side, it's processed in the middle, and it's an output on the other end. And what you do in that middle section becomes very important, but then you can track the data. And I believe in tracking both historical or lagging indicators and then the leading indicators. And I'll go into depth on that tomorrow as we start with finance or financial processes. The second one is probably the one that's least understood and maybe the most important when it comes to actually growing your business, and that's customer intelligence. Do you really know who your customer is? Do you know the demographics? Have you sat down and created an ideal customer profile? So these are things that we're going to be talking about. There are processes to uncover this, but you've got to have the process and systems in order to understand exactly what your customers want. Not what you want to sell them, but what they want, they desire. And this customer intelligence allows you to actually sell at a higher level. I know that there was a book called the Discipline of Market Leaders, and in that book they said that the customer intimacy was the number one factor, and that's where you know the customer better than they know themselves. And when you're able to do that, you get higher margins, you can do value-based pricing, and it's just a lot better situation for the health of your organization from a financial point of view. Now, number 3 is sales. Sales, usually I talk in terms of sales and marketing, but in this particular case, we're going to talk about sales first. And then number 4 is marketing. There'll be a number of things that will be discussed in the sales and marketing days and processes. And we'll also connect the dots a little bit with talking about alignment. They must be aligned in order to be totally successful. So number 5 is production processes. What are we doing production-wise? Now, you may not be a manufacturer. You just may be a distributor or a retailer or even a service company. But the fact of the matter is you're still producing something. Something of value has to leave the building in order for the customer to pay you sums of money, and that is production. And there are various and sundry, there's various processes that are included in the production part of this exercise. Number 6 is operations. Now, operations is in some cases is kind of a catch-all. I know there's chief operating officers, and they pretty much run operations and production as well. But yet, operations by itself may be more of a limited process. And yet, when I say limited, it is usually a large part of the business. So we're going to spend a little time, a day or one session talking about operations. By the way, I'm not going to spend the whole day talking to you. There'll be 15 to 30 minutes long discussions depending on the topic and all the areas that have to be covered. The 7th process is new product and service and development, or you could call it R&D. In this particular case, even if you call it R&D, it's basically development. of the D side of R&D, and and yet it's something that is overlooked again by particularly by small businesses. We fail to do that. I was joking with Lori Taylor, who I interviewed, who's one of the leaders in the stages of growth, and I told her that when I discovered one of the non-negotiable rules for my size company, it it was a non, or excuse me, new products must be developed. And I realized, oh my gosh, I mean, I smacked myself on the forehead and said that's important because, and then I looked at, and I validated it by going back to the data, and sure enough, whenever there was a lag in the sales, there was not the serious growth that I'd had the year before. I discovered that I had not added any new products in order to make new offers to my existing clients who had the trust and uh, willingness to continue to work for me for many years. And without the new products, there was no reason to actually even go talk to them or make offers. So that became a very important element. So products and services. Sometimes services are while they may be more work intensive, they also create great revenue sources, particularly continuity sales. So just we're going to cover that. Then number 8 is human resources. Now this is it sounds like a job title, yet it's processes, big time. I have been highly engaged with HR teams throughout the country in helping them to hire and select high performers that meet the job requirements. And I'm not a search firm. I actually represent the corporations, and I use processes and systems to check the talent, make sure that the trait of the talents matches the job traits necessary for the job to be successful. It's an area that it is a process. It is something that has to be done. And yet it's often overlooked. We just hire people based on job descriptions, or if we're in a hurry, we just hire whoever feels good or is like us in a personality contest, and that's not necessarily an effective and meaningful hire. In fact, those are usually the first people that get let go, or they're the ones who get on board and oftentimes produce little to nothing because they're mismatched for the job. And that's a term we'll be talking about. Then number 9 is strategy and or planning. Now, I like strategy because that's thinking outside the box. And strategy has its place, even though a company with less than 100 employees doesn't necessarily need a full-blown corporate strategic plan like a lot of people push on them, yet they will need a strategic marketing plan. And there's some other things that they need to be aware of, like what's their major business concept? What do they need to be focused on in order to be effective? And we'll be talking about those processes. Then number 10 is forecasting, tracking, and reporting. That's a simple terminology for how do you utilize analytics to track performance, as well as anticipating where you're going to go into the future. And these are basically all tracking numbers. It's a process of systems, and the greater that becomes a habit within the organization, the greater the results you have. I know of companies that do this extremely well, and they can anticipate inventories. They can anticipate trends within their marketplace by just tracking the data on a daily basis, and they're able to increase inventories or reduce inventories based upon where the economy is going based upon the results that are coming in. And it's a scientific process in many cases, yet it's very effective, and it does make you a lot of money if you've got it right. And then finally, or excuse me, not finally, but number 11 is the work community. Now, what we cut community is just a term that has been pegged to how do you deal with your workforce. There are processes to deal with your workforce to either, well, it's to basically how do you improve their performance? How do you increase the value of your workforce, your community of workers? And there are processes that you need to have in place. And we will discuss those on the 11th day. Then number 12 is project management. Project management, obviously, it is a bigger and bigger deal, and probably one of the least understood. I picked up on the fact that high performers back in the 80s, there was one trait that a lot of people were not picking up relative to high performers, and that was their ability to do performance management, not only for a company or a team, but for themselves. And it was a process. You actually, if you managed your projects properly, then you were more successful. And you know, I know there's a lot of people out there that you're in leadership positions and you are multitaskers. And surprise, surprise, it's not very productive. All of the data that comes back on multitaskers show that they are the least productive. They do a lot of things, but they seldom ever complete what they start. Now, if they're excellent in delegation from a higher level, maybe they're getting it done through delegation, but their selves, they get bored and they switch, and things get lost or fall between the cracks that should have had attention paid to them. Then number 13 is knowledge management. How do we manage the knowledge, insights, and wisdom within our organizations? This is another critical process. It has to be performed and performed at a high level. And then finally, number 14 is the second week of going in depth on processes, major business processes. We will talk about communication processes. What are communication processes, and how effectively are they being utilized within the organizations? So that will be the 14, and I'll summarize it again so you can, if you've got your pen and paper or you got your computer handy, you can make a note of which one you want to talk about, or you want to make a comment about, to say, I am very interested in that. The more interest I see in the 14, or any of the 14, the more emphasis I'll put on it, and be prepared to answer questions. So again, starting at the top, tomorrow we'll talk about financial processes. All you CFOs may want to pay attention to that one, or chief operating officers. Number 2 is customer intelligence. Very important. Number 3 will be sales. Number 4 is marketing. Number 5 is production. Number 6 is operations. Number 7 is new product service development. Think of it as R&D with emphasis on D. Now, you may be in R&D and have emphasis on R, and that's perfectly good. There are a lot of processes for the R part of the R&D also. That's a little bit more complicated, yet I've worked with several R&D groups, and they have processes. They usually have automated systems to track the progress. So R&D is effective. Then we have number 8. We're into human resources and all of the things that they need to be doing process-wise. Number 9, strategy and or planning. Might be contingency planning. What do you do if? That's a planning function. Number 10, forecasting, tracking, and reporting, which is another form of analytics. But not financial analytics, but yet it's forecasting, tracking, and reporting can cover many fields and several of these other processes. Number 11, the work community, your workforce itself. How do we set up processes to help them become even more effective, more productive, and create the high performance cultures that are so desired these days? Number 12 is project management, a key component for success within organizations today, particularly organizations that are using teams. Number 13 is knowledge management. How do we manage our knowledge, our wisdom, our insights, critical information within the organization? Critical talents is another area relative to knowledge management. And then 14 would be communication processes. And there are numerous communication processes, some of it very, very much common sense, others a little bit more complex, yet necessary for the effective operation of your organization. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I'm glad to be home. I've been extremely busy for the last 2 days, catching up after being out of touch for almost 5 days. And I'm looking forward to getting back into the stream of things with a series of live presentations on topics of interest to you. Now, in addition to these 14 that I'm about to give you in the near future, if you have other areas that you wish to discuss, or you would like for me to talk about on one of our lives, please make a comment. You can do it in this section or any of the future ones. I will be reading all of the comments personally, not assigning to somebody else, because that gives me the inspiration of who is listening and what you want to learn. That's why I'm doing all this in the first place, is to help you get better at what you do. So let me know, and I will emphasize it in a future live session. So with that, I want to thank you for visiting with me today. Be sure to leave a comment if you like what I'm talking about, or you feel like one of the topics is going to be extremely important for some of your peers or for people that you know or work with. Be sure to share the link or share the videos with them. It just helps. It helps coverage and allows me to reach more and more people each time. So for that, I would have to thank you for your assistance and help, because my goal is to help you get better in business. And with that, I want to thank you. Have a great week and an even better 2019. So thank you very much. Take care.